Hello, this is Not Movie Recaps, and today we'll be talking about the movie Lock Up. A father sends his rebellious son to a special boarding school that resembles a torture center, where they teach how to control aggression.
Приказом. Молчу, не говорю, повинуюсь приказам.
The film, based on real events, starts with the main character, a teenager named Fran, chatting with his best friend and girlfriend via video call. He's drinking beer and smoking in front of his computer. Suddenly, his father Louis enters the room. He has to get up early, and the loud noise is keeping him awake. The teenager rudely tells him to get lost, but the father doesn't leave. He tries to talk to his son while his friends patiently wait. In the morning, as sleep-deprived and irritated, Louis goes to work managing a store. Meanwhile, his lazy son is having fun, skipping school, smoking with friends, listening to music, drinking, and cuddling with his girlfriend. Later, the father learns that Fran has long since dropped out of school. Then he gets a call from the hospital asking him to pick up his son, who got into a fight. Louis has to go to the emergency room where Miku's parents, Fran's friend, are already waiting. They complain that Fran is a bad influence on their child. After the examination, Louis takes his son home. He tries to talk to him on the way back, but in the underground garage, Fran snaps and tries to leave. Louis catches up to him, but the teenager yells at him and hits him before running off. When Louis returns home that evening, his son is already gone. Fran has gone to a disco to party with friends, dance, drink, and sniff illegal substances. Louis lights the candles on a birthday cake alone. His son has turned 17. Worrying that he can't find common ground with his child, Louis Googles ways to communicate with teenagers. He comes across an ad for the Simco program for special psychological correction of aggressive behavior. Parents of troubled teenagers share their experiences, saying how hard it was to communicate with their children before and how easy it became after. Watching these videos, Louis loses track of time. That night, a high Fran staggers through the hallway. He stops at his father's slightly open bedroom door, but Louis turns off the light to avoid another unpleasant conversation. The next day, Louis attends the Simco presentation. A charismatic speaker gives an inspiring speech about how discipline can instill spoiled children with true values and a sense of purpose for a successful business. While he listens to the speech, his son is on his phone, drinking alcohol. Miku, following his mother's advice, distances himself from Fran, and his girlfriend hints that there was nothing serious between them, so he shouldn't make any long-term plans. Upset, Fran continues to drown his sorrows. That's how his father finds him in the evening. At night, two specially trained people drag a half-naked teenager out of his bedroom. He fights back, kicks, screams, and calls for his father, but Louis has already packed a suitcase with his things and sees his son off to the boarding school at the door. The boy is thrown into a minivan and driven along a picturesque serpentine road away from the sea. There he is met by Father Oscar, the head of the boarding school. The man is displeased that the newcomer is barefoot and half-naked. The students must maintain discipline and arrive fully dressed. He also dislikes the handcuffs on the teenager. Oscar orders them to be removed. Fran perceives this gesture as friendly and insults the guard, but the educator immediately restores social hierarchy. He twists the defiant child's arm, slams his face into the wall, and reads out the basic rules, among which is obligatory respectful silence in the presence of elders. The right to speak is a privilege. Fran is shaved bald, given a uniform, and taken to join the rest of the group. Children with bloody marks on their chins watch a daily video. They greet the newcomer with a rehearsed speech. When Fran tries to talk to his neighbor, Father Oscar pauses the video. The kids jump up and recite the rules about silence. Disconcerted by such coordination, the hero looks around in surprise, realizing that no one here will pamper him. The daily schedule includes strictly regulated use for work for the benefit of the community, collecting clothespins, as well as group meals in the dining hall. Fran observes his new comrades, trying to memorize the mandatory text for everyone. They are shown TV clips where psychologists hammer acceptable behavior into their heads. Among the educators, Father Nando stands out. Oscar reprimands him for his appearance and chewing gum, which sets a bad example for the students. The teenagers also talk with a psychologist, who asks them not only about their deepest fears, but also about their relationships with their parents. Fran confesses that he misses his father, but is saddened by the fact that Louis has never really shown fatherly love, including towards his mother, who left the family when he was little. The teaching staff of the boarding school, led by Oscar, discussed the upcoming Freedom Day, a kind of holiday for the students designed to show what their life could be like outside the institution. Nando, being new, doesn't know what it is, and his colleagues lightly tease him, to which he responds with a melodramatic speech. Later, during lunch, Nando takes out his anger on one of the students, slamming his face into the table while the other kids hurriedly eat. Pretending not to notice, during the disciplinary process, Nando gets carried away and sprays the child's eyes with pepper spray. This displeases the director of the boarding school. Wealthy parents don't pay for their children to be maimed. Oscar manages to hush up the matter, giving Nando a mild reprimand and reinforcing it with a blow to the face against the table. Soon, Fran successfully memorizes the rules, but he is still unfamiliar with the punishments. So one night after lights out, he sneaks out of his room, unnoticed by the guards. He goes down to the lower floor, where he finds the sensory deprivation ward, a place of full or partial isolation from the outside world. Even simple conversations are forbidden here. In one of the rooms, he sees a teenager tied to a gurney, with his eyes and ears covered. Left alone with his thoughts, Fran removes the mask and headphones from the boy, who screams for him to kill him out of mercy. Terrified by this reaction, Fran runs back, but the guards notice his escape from the dormitory. An alarm is raised, and a chase begins. Fran hides in a corner, but when a guard enters, he attacks and beats him into a bloody pulp until reinforcements subdue him. For this act, Father Oscar sentences the entire group to punishment. The children are made to lie face down on the floor, with their chins pressed to the ground. While they lie still, the guards occasionally turn on bright lights and loud music. The situation is reminiscent of an episode of Pokémon Day that caused epileptic seizures. After serving the punishment, Fran receives his bloody mark on his chin. Meanwhile, the parents of the children gather for their own rehabilitation program, led by psychologist Helena. Luis shares that he can't find common ground with his son, to which the doctor responds that dialogue requires participation from both sides. So not only should the children learn submission, but the parents must also be involved in their lives. As a successful example, Helena presents Sandra and her parents. The girl completed the program, and the adults talk about how their lives changed after their daughter's return. However, the story ends with the girl wedding herself, and her mother leads her away, back home. Luis, following the psychologist's advice, enters his son's room. On his computer, he watches a music video where his son is goofing around with friends. Among the frames, Luis himself briefly appears, filmed secretly by his son at work. The video brings a smile to his face, and the next morning, he goes to the boarding school to pick up his son. However, Oscar shows him a video of Fran beating up the guard and convinces him that Fran is not yet ready to adapt to society. During the viewing of another video, Fran makes a joke, which the educators hear. The group is led to another punishment for not absorbing the repeatedly emphasized messages. They must stand with their hands tied and eyes blindfolded for more than a day. Only those who endure the longest will pass the test. The rest will be sent to the sensory isolator. Those who squat are taken away by the guards. Meanwhile, the parents undergo another training session on mutual understanding. Luis gets to know Sandra's parents better. They worry about their daughter's mental health, but hope that the training will help. The next day, the remaining teenagers are fed, but there is one portion less than the number of captives. Unable to agree, the children argue, and the guards take away all their food. As the second night approached, Helena came to the cage. She filmed the kids, to gather evidence of the cruel methods used at the boarding school. Nando caught her and brought her to Oscar. However, the director saw nothing wrong with the data leak, as all these methods were legal. Another day, Fran was the last one standing and returned to the routine life according to the schedule. Meanwhile, Luis established a warm relationship with Sandra's mother. They had lunch together, and their acquaintance grew into a romantic interest. But while she was kissing Luis in the parking lot, her daughter was watching the videos of torture that Helena had posted. Unable to bear the memories of what she had experienced, the girl jumped from the roof right in front of her father, who was absorbed in his work. The director reprimanded Oscar for the data leak, leading to stricter rules and regime at the boarding school. The students were literally driven to exhaustion with physical exercises. Some even vomited right in the gym. Oscar also continued to practice beatings, with the silent consent of the rest of the staff. All this led Fran to rebel at a certain point. He frowns in place and refused to leave the dining hall. Oscar ordered him to be taken to the sensory isolation chamber. There, Fran was tied up, and his eyes and ears were covered. After some time, due to the lack of external stimuli, his brain began to produce hallucinations, images from his past. The torture ended when Freedom Day arrived. The boys and girls groups gathered in the gym to dance the waltz. The exhausted Fran was also brought in, but he did not participate. He just watched from the sidelines, sitting on a chair. The students paired up, waltzed on command, but then one of the boys, inspired by Fran's open rebellion, Francie, others followed his example. Despite Father Oscar's shouts and blows, the event was disrupted, much to Fran's satisfaction. Nando even had to restrain the director to prevent him from injuring anyone in his hysteria. Luis confesses that he wants to take his son out of the boarding school, and the woman tells him that it is the right decision after what they did to her daughter's psyche. The next day, the man arrives at the boarding school. Fran is brought out immediately, without any attempt to dissuade his father. The teenager silently gets into the car, without even greeting Luis, and stares out the window blankly on the way home. At home, he meets with his girlfriend, asking her how she's doing. He doesn't talk about his experiences at the boarding school, only lamenting that there are still many children left there. Fran doesn't want to talk to his father, but he has stopped being rude. He gets rid of the memorable things in his room, thus breaking the connection with his past self. He doesn't accept gifts from his father, and spends his free time shouting out the window into the rainy void of the big city. One day, standing in the kitchen, he reflexively repeats phrases from the boarding school, which provokes a dialogue. Fran accuses his father of deliberately sending him to be tortured by cysts. Luis protests, saying he was deceived, and then delivers a monologue, admitting to his son that it is also difficult for him to raise him alone since his mother left them, considering them both unnecessary. He admits that it is hard for him to acknowledge this, and his son only makes the situation worse by blaming him. In the next scene, they are silently driving to some house. Luis gets out to hand documents to the owners. The angle does not reveal to whom exactly. When they drive away, Fran asks if it was his mother. Instead of answering, Luis gets out of the car and walks away in the rain. His son catches up to him, and they stand together, hugging and hiding their tears in the rain. The film ends here. Subscribe to the channel and leave your opinions about the film in the comments.